ya mama. Hi everybody, Debbie here with Garden Style. So today I'm going to cover with you several perennials that I have put into the ground, some for shade, some for sun, and teach you a little bit about them and give you some options. As we start to move into the month of June, it's all about the perennials. I call June Perennial Month because that's usually when I plant the majority of the perennials that I need to fill holes with and things, because I'm over the annuals. Got most of those in. Of course, you can always tuck a few more in here and there. But for the most part, the containers are planted. And now I'm ready to just start walking the yard and filling up some holes that I have on this big piece of property that I have. So anyway, I'm going to introduce you to one right now. And this one is meant for the shade. So here we go. So this first plant I'm going to introduce you to is an Acanthus, or bear's breeches. It's gotten its name, but this one is a variegated version, and I absolutely love it for the shade garden, simply because I put a couple of them in here. They light it up with their really bright foliage. Now this particular specimen is called Acanthus Whitewater, kind of an appropriate name for it. And I love them because later on in the summer they will get really tall bloom spikes on them, and they last for 6 to 7 weeks. So it'll make a pretty dramatic statement in this particular shade garden. And you can see that this one already is starting to form a bud on it. So I'm like really excited. So bear's breeches, or Acanthus, also comes in dark green. And I really got to love this plant simply because once it becomes established, it can be very drought tolerant in the shade. So it's great for dry shade, but it can handle some moisture. I find they're very tough. And this particular one will take part shade to shade. So as you can see, it's getting a little bit of light, but it's really late in the evening. So it doesn't seem to bother it any. But this guy is hardy down to zone 7. And it actually is a good idea to let it dry between waterings. It can get about 24 to 36 inches high, and that's probably including the spikes that it gets on it. And it will bloom in the summer. So it's nice to have something that not only blooms in the shade, but does it a little bit later after spring. So just wanted to introduce you to this guy. Yeah, he can get 24 to 36 inches high and 18 to 24 inches wide. So I'm really looking forward to seeing those. Since I'm here, I just thought I would introduce you to a little fun thing that I'm starting to play with this year. But I was given 2 old containers here and took advantage of a tree stump that's currently sitting here that needed something. So I took one and set it on top, and I planted some snapdragons in the back there. And of course bacopa, which will drape over the sides. And in this bottom one, I kind of tipped it over and planted impatiens in here, just to create like a little river of flowers down here. See that? So we'll see how that turns out later on in the summer once everything has filled in. But you know, it's fun. Get out here and start getting creative with certain areas of your yard. But this is a shade garden that I'm currently building and working on. And this is what I came up with for this little spot. Okay, so this next specimen is a really neat plant that I've never grown before, so I'm giving it a try this year. But look at the coloration on here. This is a lupine, and as you can see, there are the real neat leaves that come up on it. And this is a flower that blooms from the bottom up, as you can see right there. And this particular variety is called Manhattan Lights. So I've kind of become enamored with them because they'll take sun to part shade, and that's exactly what happens over here in this bed. It'll get sun for about 4 hours, maybe 5, as we get into, you know, full-on summer here. But it seems to thrive and do really well. So just going to show you the tag here because I, of course, always save them. But yeah, Manhattan Lights is the name of it. I would call this a must-have plant. It hasn't passed the test here yet in my garden, but we'll certainly follow up by next year to let you know how they're doing. But this particular plant will take exposure of sun to part shade. It is hardy down to zone 4. This is another one where you can let it get dry between waterings. That's of course once it's established. And it'll get about 36 inches high. And this will bloom late spring, early summer. So that's that one. And then the other one that I am trying, which will be right next door here, and I just put them in today. But this particular variety is kind of sitting right near it. And this is called Masterpiece Lupine. And it's not blooming right now, but that gives you an idea what they look like. So it's kind of a purple with a red center on it with all the spikes, which I just thought was super cool. And again, sun to part shade, height 24 to 36 inches, and hardy down to zone 4. And once they start blooming, they stay blooming for quite a while. So I had a spot over here in my sun to part shade garden where the daylilies thrive. They do very well here, but needed some filler plants, and so that's what I've put in here along the edge. So I wanted to introduce you to those, Masterpiece, as well as the other one that I just showed you. So lupines, what a great way to go for a sun to part shade garden. So here's another newbie for me this year, and I really like the neon foliage that this one carries. And this is called Summer Sunshine Germander. For those of you who aren't familiar with germanders, it is actually an herb. A lot of people use them in herb knot gardens, that kind of thing, but you can see I started putting them in here to edge the border of this bed. And this is purely an experiment. This is a brand new plant for me, and I just wanted to introduce it to you folks so that maybe you can try it. But this is another one that will take sun to part shade, at least 4 to 5 hours of sun if you want to get the blooms on them. They only get about 12 inches high and 18 inches wide. They're very drought tolerant once they get established, which I desperately need along the border here. Something that can handle some dryness, because we are sitting underneath a whole lot of trees right here, so it has a tendency to dry out. Let's see, it's also evergreen, so this doesn't die back like a lot of them. This should hold its leaves, being it's hardy down to zone 5. So here's another new one that I'm giving a try, but this will also bloom in the summer. I'm going to hold up the tag here for you. It'll have a pink bloom on it. It's deer resistant, of course attracts bees and butterflies, and they're fragrant. So what a neat plant. But the bright yellow leaves in spring will fade to kind of a chartreuse in the summer, and that's when the short spikes of pink flowers will start to appear. So this is also a good candidate for rock gardens as well, being it is very drought tolerant. But I have it edging the beds here, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so here's another perennial that I planted last year, and I actually added some more into the garden here. You can kind of see where their dark foliage is. And this is a Heliopsis. And I was so impressed with how quickly they came back, especially after a very harsh winter that we just had. And they were one of the first things to appear in the garden, and they have put on a lot of size. So this is called Bleeding Hearts Heliopsis. I'm going to show you the tag here so you can get an idea what the flowers will look like. But it's a beautiful kind of a red, russet red-orange color, which look amazing against this dark foliage. So this gets a little bit taller. It's probably about 36 to 40 inches high. Extremely hardy, down to zone 3. Very drought tolerant once it gets established, and blooms forever, it seems. It started blooming for me last year, I think it was in the end of June, beginning of July, and kept on blooming until the first frost. So I'm in love with this plant, and I think I covered this last year in a video, but I wanted to cover it again today just because it has really performed really well. I have a very hot, sunny perennial bed here. that gets full on sun. And you can see I've got catmint blooming now, and the yarrows are starting to get started, and a whole lot of other things in here that have buds on them. But this is a garden that I usually really start to show off in June and July. That's when it really starts to come into its own. But now we're already starting to see lots of blooms appearing, lots of phlox starting to come up, bee balm, Penstemon. I have lots of drought tolerant type perennials in here. So we'll definitely be covering this bed a lot, especially during the summertime, just so I can show you how everything is doing in the summer garden. So here's another drought tolerant perennial, and I have quite a few varieties of it, but this is a new one for me this year. This is Prarie Dusk Penstemon, and you can see that it's already starting to open up and start blooming. And Penstemon, I'm telling you, these things, once they start blooming, they don't quit all the way till the first frost. This is another really fantastic perennial for a sunny garden. And these will get about 3 feet tall by 2 feet wide. Another one that's super hardy down to zone 3, extremely drought tolerant. Once it's established, blooms forever. And yeah, they show you the tag here. They send up these fabulous pink spikes. And of course, the hummingbirds will be all over these as soon as they start to open up. So that's another really awesome perennial for a hot summer bed. As you can see, the Itoh peonies are starting to strut their stuff. But both of them here have just now started to begin blooming. And man, I really love this particular shrub. That's what I'm calling it. It's actually a perennial, but yeah, it's turned into a shrub. They're doing exceptionally well here. Here's another plant that everybody should have in their garden, and that is Salvia. And you can see already, if you want a pollinator garden, there you go. The bees absolutely love this stuff. This is an older variety, but extremely tolerant of our wet winters and dry summers. And this one is called Salvia May Night. And this is its 2nd year since I put it in, and you can just see how outstanding the blooms are on this particular plant. So another good one to edge your borders with is May Night Salvia. You can't lose as far as this is concerned. This is also really hardy down to zone 4. So that's another reason it can survive our really wet winters, is it's a tough plant. And this is another one that as long as you keep it deadheaded, it will continue to keep blooming for you throughout the entire summer. All right, you guys, there you go. There's some more plants for you to try, some perennials. And just wanted to remind you folks that in about a week here, I'll be doing my Grow More in 24 for the month of June. And I have a whole new bag of tricks that I want to introduce you to. New plants, things that we need to do during the month of June, etc., etc. So I can't believe it. It's like a few days away before we finally see the month of June. So with that in mind, I'll probably be popping out my next video either by next weekend or the week after, so that you're up to speed on what we need to do during the month of June. In the meantime, hope you guys have had a fabulous Memorial weekend. I know I did here. It was cool and cloudy for a couple of days, but now I'm finally able to get out here and finish planting up some things. But I'll have a long list for you for the month of June. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, you can leave those in the description box down below. You can also take advantage of our newsletter at sunnycrestnursery.com. Be coming out with that as well during the beginning of June to kind of follow up with the videos that I'm putting out. But yeah, super excited. We have a whole new month to look forward to, and a whole new set of plants and blooms, and of course things to do during the month of June. So keep those hands dirty out there, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.